I don't understand any of this stuff. For example, you're telling me that this young man who isn't trained in the military. First of all, how did what you're going to witness cause complete chaos on the internet, ladies and gentlemen? A fresh video that was leaked in relation to the Charlie Kirk shooting has recently come to light. This time it's footage rather than hearsay. Who broke it, you ask? Rogan Joe. Yes, the same man who made this statement. He never found the entire story to be satisfactory. In the last moments before things went bad, Charlie's own chief of staff, Mike McCoy, is seen in the video standing a few feet away. Additionally, the internet is going crazy. He was filming, but why? Why did he seem so at ease? And why did he simply go as if nothing had happened just seconds after the shot? Was it something darker or was it shock? I wouldn't be that calm if my friend just got shot. Now people are searching for the truth by going over every frame, every motion, and every blink. Because the story we've been fed might totally fall apart if what this footage depicts is true. This is no longer merely a leak. It serves as a warning. Nobody knew what they were looking at when the video initially surfaced. It was not ostentatious. It wasn't particularly cinematic. Unsteady video that you would browse through 1,000 times a day. However, as soon as people discovered who was in the picture, the internet came to a complete halt since Charlie Kirk's own chief of staff, Mike McCoy, was standing a few steps away from him immediately before the gunshot that altered everything. Calm, concentrated filming. That picture alone would have been enough to frighten most individuals. However, what made this one unique was the timing, the precise moment before the chaos. Furthermore, neither a political figure nor a journalist was the first to openly respond. Joe Rogan was the one. In a matter of hours, his podcast segment became global. His voice was low and his eyes were steely as he leaned into the microphone. You're telling me that this person, who happens to be his best buddy, is filming the incident without even blinking? No, dude, it doesn't sit well. The fuse was lighted by that one sentence. Twitter threads blew up in a matter of minutes. YouTubers began performing slow-motion studies, and Reddit detectives began splicing frames. Mike's body language became proof in milliseconds. His left hand, the strap of his rucksack, and even his blink. People claimed to detect everything from reflected figures to coded signals by zooming in, enhancing, and reversing on the screen of his phone. The video starts off as usual. Charlie was grinning, his hands were shaking, the cameras were flashing, and it was the typical rally vibe. However, Mike's background conduct is the subject of constant conversation. He doesn't clap, cheer, or even blink. He's filming as if he anticipates something. His face was expressionless. Not anxious, not afraid, but simply waiting. The shot came next. The crowd is rocked by the sound. Panic, confusion, and screams. Mike McCoy did something that caused the entire internet to freeze while the camera trembled violently and everyone ducked and fled. Calm, composed, and silent, he turns slowly, puts his phone in his pocket, and leaves. People were in disbelief at what they were witnessing. Some claimed it was shock, while others claimed it was guilt. The fact that he appeared indifferent and as though he had practiced it only made it worse. It seems as though he had witnessed acts of violence up close before. Mike McCoy was aware that he was trending on X by the following morning. That identical 6-second film was being replayed by thousands of people on loop in a matter of hours. It was dubbed the calmest walk in history by influencers. Joe Rogan's video had already received 20 million views, and conspiracy channels called him the guy in the hat. Rogan's response was vicious. I would go insane if my friend was shot 2 feet in front of me. You don't leave. You let go of the camera and flee. It only required that. The floodgates came open. TikTok investigators said they had discovered fresh frames. The video was slowed down to 0. 25x speed, emphasizing the flashing of Mike's phone light before the photo. Others claimed he made a subtle signal with 2 fingers pointing up and down. Naturally, naysayers dismissed it with laughter. They stated he was only filming. However, laughing is meaningless in the world of internet conjecture. Doubt had already begun to circulate. After that, things became more bizarre. Videos of Mike and Charlie laughing, traveling, and sharing stages from past Turning Point USA events started to reappear. The ideal pair. However, enthusiasts saw something strange in retrospect. Mike's smiles were fleeting. His expression was usually unreadable and taut. Even when Charlie was entertaining audiences or telling jokes, Mike remained professional, aloof, and nearly icy. The internet became obsessed with the same distant expression from the video. It became known as the McCoy gaze. Mike's father, Pastor Rob McCoy, entered the storm in the meanwhile. He unintentionally made things worse during a live feed intended to soothe the audience. He verified that he had been in a secret group chat with Charlie in the past, something no one had ever heard before. Weeks before his passing, his comment was repeatedly repeated by one reporter. "I did see the messages, yes." Charlie had been doubting several of the organization's directions. That one remark split the internet in two, since Mike would have known as well if Rob and Charlie had been in the same discussion, and Charlie had been doubting Turning Point's path. And all of a sudden, Charlie's intention to quit the movement didn't no longer sound like rumors. Podcasters jumped in. What if Mike was under duress? What if he was guarding something more significant? The platforms were unable to control the proliferation of theories. Everyone was curious as to why those group chats had vanished and what was actually happening behind them. Days later, Pastor Rob attempted to explain that he had made a mistake, but the harm had already been done. "There's no conspiracy here, just pain," he said in response, which only made matters worse. His videos were inundated with comments accusing him of being controlled, rehearsed, and defensive. Every time he said, "Trust the process," remarks like "process equals cover-up" erupted. The whole McCoy family had stopped talking by the weekend. No statements, no interviews, and no new posts. Moreover, the conjecture became louder in stillness. Independent producers began to delve further. The Frame Watchers, a small YouTube channel, posted what they said was a color-corrected version of the video. They pointed out something unsettling and paused their pace. Mike's lips move as he looks aside. Even though it was only for a brief while, online lip-reading specialists were able to conclude that he said a single word. Now that alone, the syllable turned into a lightning rod. Did he say it to himself? To a concealed earpiece while speaking on the phone. He had started trending globally within hours. It was referred to as a coincidence by some. Some referred to it as the moment everything changed. In a longer part that same evening, Joe Rogan stated, "Look, I'm not saying the guy's guilty. I'm saying it's weird." His co-host nodded slowly. "It's strange how the people closest to power always act like they've been trained for this kind of thing. That's not normal human behavior. They all seem to be reading from the same script." And the same script stuck with that line. It gave rise to what Reddit would subsequently refer to as the script theory. The notion that Charlie Kirk's family, employees, and other close associates had been told what to say and how to respond. This theory's proponents gathered screenshots from statements made after the shooting and saw anything strange. Turning Point employees utilized the same language in nearly all of their communications. Tragic loss, unite, and continue his cause. For something so unpolished, it appeared overly organized, tidy, and businesslike. People started to wonder if Charlie died on his own. Why did everyone sound so ready? In the meantime, old pictures of Mike McCoy began to be subtly removed from Turning Point's official page. His bio completely vanished from the staff area in a matter of days. "I simply went online without making any announcements or saying goodbye." It wasn't a cleanup. It was a razor. Fuse's posts were inundated with comments. "Mike, where are you? If he is innocent, why remove him? What do you have to hide?" The organization's silence did nothing but feed the flames. Then a fresh clip surfaced late that evening. Blurry, vertical, and obviously shot by a member of the event team. After the gunshot, there were a few moments of commotion. However, this is what caused it to go viral. Mike was clearly seen once more, quietly taking out his phone and moving behind the security wall rather than panicking or fleeing. The timestamp and the main video were within seconds of each other. Even mainstream media started to cover it after the uploader captioned it simply, "Second angle, same calm." The same question is being broadcast on Fox, CNN, and News Nation. Why is Mike McCoy's response so composed? The story had developed a life of its own by this point. What started off as a single clip of bewilderment had evolved into a multi-layered plot that combined betrayal, loyalty, politics, and faith. Loyalty, politics, and faith. Additionally, the noise grew louder the more officials attempted to quiet it. Because, as one commentator stated in a widely shared livestream, the moment you tell the internet to stop asking questions, that's when the internet digs graves. Every silence turned into a clue. Each post that was removed turned into a confession, and one truth became unavoidable with each day that went by. This was no longer only a tragedy. It was a tempest. One man stood in the middle of everything, his phone high, his hand steady, his face expressionless, and he watched history fall apart in front of him as if he already knew what would happen. It felt like an unraveling over the next 48 hours. What started off as a grainy cell phone video had developed into a national obsession. On Telegram, Reddit, and X, threads go viral. Everyone was curious. Where is Mike McCoy? Nobody has seen him since the day of the shooting, not even in background shots of turning point events or at the church or memorial. He had disappeared. At that point, the public went to his father, Pastor Rob McCoy, the one person who was unable to stay out of the spotlight. Rob appeared live on the Sunday stream of his church. He spoke in a soothing, practiced tone. "Mike's hurting," he muttered. "He's been through trauma. He's cooperating fully with authorities." But halfway through, something changed. A viewer's question popped up in the chat. "Did Charlie tell you anything unusual before the tragedy?" Rob froze, smiled awkwardly, then said, "We're not here to talk about that." The clip that cracked the dam was just one sentence. The caption, "When the questions are too close to the truth," went viral on the internet in a matter of minutes. People began digging into old sermons, speeches, and interviews from the pastor. They found dozens of clips where he mentioned Charlie Kirk, always with the same tone of pride, but lately always with a strange edge of defensiveness. In one resurfaced video, he said, "Charlie had a fire that scared individuals. Truth can sometimes create adversaries." Viewers also froze that frame. Was that hinting at anything to come? Joe Rogan increased his efforts as the theories became more prevalent. He recreated the video, frame by frame, on his subsequent episode. Rogan wasn't holding back, despite his co-host's best efforts to remain impartial. "He's as cool as ice," Rogan remarked. Additionally, his father works in public relations. Tours. Grieving doesn't operate like that. In a single night, the video received 10 million views. All of a sudden, major media were forced to participate in the discussion. CNN described it as an unsettling internet craze. According to Fox News, it's the global communication scene. However, the networks were unprepared for the speed with which the public turned against them. Each time a broadcaster declared that there was no proof of foul play, the remarks detonated and then played the video for us. It became the rallying cry to demand the release of the tapes. A brief statement was issued by Turning Point USA. Law enforcement has received all of the footage. We asked for patience and privacy, but that just made people more irate. Why not show the video if it was innocent? Why conceal it behind an unverifiable investigation? Then a second shoe fell. Screenshots of an alleged internal FUSA group discussion were published on a small conservative blog. "We need to keep messaging consistent. Do not discuss Mike publicly," was all that a communications officer wrote in one correspondence. Once more, the internet exploded. Within hours, the hashtag #DoesDiscussMike became the most popular. Whether or not the screenshots were authentic was irrelevant. The impression was sufficient. People were certain that the story was being buried in a concerted effort. Others started linking irrelevant security camera blind areas, removed tweets, and strange staff post timing. A fresh story surfaced. The shooting was not at all random. It was intended to convey a message. Podcasters began referring to it as the turning point paradox. How can a transparency-focused movement manage to conceal the most important aspect of its existence? However, one incident altered everything once more in the midst of all the pandemonium. Just weeks prior to the incident, a 27-second video from a private donor dinner leaked. The audience chuckles as Charlie declares, "I'm not going to be anyone's puppet anymore." He doesn't. He continues to speak in a low voice, serious, and Mike McCoy was looking right at him in the corner of the picture. That same icy, unwavering gaze, no smile, no expression. The video's views on TikTok surged after it was posted. The word of the week was puppet. The footage was divided into short documentaries by the creators. "The Moment He Sealed His Fate" was the title of one account's post. Candace Owens joined the chat the following morning after someone else said, "He said it," and weeks later, he was gone. She literally went live, and she had a fiery tone. "I saw that video. I reduced the speed. I examined every moment, and you are unable to persuade me that it was shocking." That was consciousness. She leaned in closer to the camera. Before the shot, he was already on the phone. The internet was completely upended by just one charge. Comment sections were inundated with timestamps, theories, and videos from her audience. Through Mike's phone, sound engineers claimed to have detected a faint background voice. Just one scarcely audible word. Theories exploded on all platforms now. Was an order being given? Was it a distortion or was it real? People stood in line. The deniers and the believers are on opposing sides. However, Mike's silence exacerbated the situation. There has been no public appearance, no statement, and not even a denial. Turning Point consistently used the same response when reporters contacted them for comment. We have nothing further to say. Rogan went back to the narrative, portraying Candace's assertion in his performance. He did not affirm thing, but he also didn't dispute it. If that audio is real, he murmured, we are no longer discussing coincidence. The internet went from being a source of interest to an obsession at that point. Like investigators in a crime documentary, independent analysts started synchronizing the audio from Candace's stream, the rally film, and the leaked dinner clip to create complete timeframes. In an attempt to determine Mike's whereabouts following the shooting, Reddit users monitored his flight data. Others shared alleged his phone went black less than 24 hours after the incident, according to GPS pings. That wasn't coincidental to conspiracy theorists. Cleanup was that Pastor Rob made one final appearance on a live feed as the pressure mounted. Exhaustion, not emotion, was the cause of his voice trembling. I'm begging you, he murmured. You're harming good people, so stop spreading lies. Charlie was like family to us. Please don't make this worse than it already is, but by then it was too late. Screenshots of that quote were already making the rounds with captions like, then tell the truth. Charlie paused, turned away from the camera, and moaned. According to insiders, Turning Point had begun discreetly shutting off contact behind closed doors. Employees were instructed not to speak and to report any mention of the McCoys to legal. Even mainstream journalists started whispering what independent outlets had been shouting for weeks, that the footage held something bigger, something no one was prepared to confront. In an unsettling turn of events, a new clip leaked a private conversation between staff members. And you could hear someone say, they're not releasing the full angles because it shows too much movement. What kind of movement? The story had gotten out of control, and as one internet commenter put it, they can't stop it now. No one knew who they were, but conjecture became certain. The video is available, and the internet never stops searching once it detects blood. By the third week, the focus had shifted from justice to entertainment, addiction, and paranoia, rolled into one. Entire channels were created overnight to solve the McCoy mystery. Hashtags transformed into movements. Every silence was evidence. Every denial was guilt. Every smile in old pictures was a mask concealing treachery. And at the center of it all, one terrifying question kept coming up. Was Mike McCoy merely a bystander, or did he know exactly what was coming? By the fourth week, the story had gone from viral to radioactive, and the newsroom had stopped referring to it as a tragedy and had begun to whisper the word cover-up. What had started out as a shaky cell phone clip had become a national guessing game about who knew what and when, and Mike McCoy had been utterly silent. No statements, no interviews, no sightings. Rogan's next podcast began with the sound of static and a single sentence. They're scrubbing something, which initially made the audience laugh before he played a voicemail purportedly from an anonymous Fusa insider. Even local reporters in Thousand Oaks who knew the family couldn't get a single comment. It was as if he'd disappeared into thin air, giving the internet permission to write the story for him. The damage was done in a matter of hours, with hashtags like unanswered hidden angles and where is Mike going viral. TikTok was inundated with edits, side-by-side comparisons of Charlie's last speech, Mike's composed walk-off, and the eerie still of him staring at the stage just before the shot. Dramatic music, red filters, and captions like he knew. It was no longer journalism. Rogan didn't say if he believed the claim. Longer journalism. Rogan didn't say if he believed the claim. It was theater, but then something really startling occurred. In a Substack post titled "The Timeline That Breaks Everything," independent data analyst Kara Linton claimed to have matched phone tower pings from the campus area that showed one outgoing call from Mike's phone exactly 14 seconds prior to the gunshot. The call lasted 6 seconds and had no recipient listed. The post went viral overnight, screenshots went viral, and people demanded an explanation. If the call was genuine, who was he speaking to? Law enforcement sources declined to comment, and Turning Point called it a baseless fabrication, but no one could refute it either. At that point, Candace Owens jumped back in, going live while holding printed pages. According to Carrara's report, "I'm not saying he pulled the trigger," she said in a low, trembling voice. "I'm saying the silence around this man is louder than any gunshot." The video received 15 million views in just 12 hours, and every response that followed was a domino effect. Podcasts, live streams, and reaction channels all fueled the fire, dividing conservative circles into those who supported the McCoys and those convinced that Charlie had been betrayed from within. The most bizarre turn of events occurred when a leaked security briefing transcript started making the rounds on Reddit. Although it wasn't verified, the language sounded official, warning of unauthorized data duplication, and mentioning discrepancies between volunteer footage and internal FISA recordings. The final line, pending federal classification, seemed to be confirmation to the internet. Someone uploaded a side-by-side of Pastor Rob's Facebook before and after the deletions. The caption was precisely erased. The following day, Rogan said what everyone was thinking: "You don't delete." Meanwhile, people began to notice patterns in the McCoy family's social media behavior. Old posts disappeared in clusters: birthday photos, travel logs, even charity events. Happy memories when you have nothing to hide. By week 5, fans had become archivists and journalists had become detectives. Every deleted post had reappeared in re-uploads. Every clip had been re-edited. Every sentence had been reinterpreted. The focus had shifted from truth to endurance. Who could withstand the cleanup? Then came another bombshell. The night before the rally, a 12-second video from a backstage live stream leaked, showing Charlie discussing logistics for the following day with staff. Mike enters the chat in the middle and murmurs, "We're good on timing." They attested to it. The term alone sparked more conjecture. The creators slowed the video, improved the audio, examined reflections in a water bottle, everything. No one knows who they are. In an attempt to quell the chaos, Pastor Rob gave a sermon titled Faith in the Fire, saying, "Rumors destroy the innocent." One person claimed to have seen a security badge with a blurred logo that matched a private contractor used by Fuser Vents. Suddenly, people were shouting the word mercenaries aloud. Charlie was adored by Mike. The narrative is over. Even his congregation, though, didn't buy it. Within an hour, a tape of his voice cracking was shared online with the comment, "Guilt sounds like that." And just when it seemed that the internet had exploded, all of the conjecture had dried up. A fresh tape was leaked. Shortly after the shooting, there was audio from within the tent. The turmoil is genuine and the shrieking is intolerable. However, amid the commotion, someone murmurs, "Get him out." The analysts couldn't agree on who said it. It was security, according to some. Some claimed it was Mike. However, every comment section was illuminated by the word him. Who was being removed? Charlie or another person? Joe Rogan listened to the video as it was played live. "Headphones for a studio? Play that back slower," he remarked, glancing up at his producer after 10 seconds. The whisperer's voice got more distinct. This time, 2 words, "Leave." Rogan reclined. He answered, "That's not panic. That is a directive." Everywhere, that quote became the headline. Turning Point eventually released a second statement as the rumors intensified. Brief, sterile, and incredibly ambiguous. Every internal review has been finished. This issue is deemed resolved. However, nobody else did. Screenshots purportedly displaying staff annoyance about the statement were leaked from a private donor discussion within hours. One message said, "We Mike's situation is unsustainable," stated another. Too little, too late. The word reverberated like thunder. Candace Owens, meanwhile, went live once more, clearly upset this time. They are mistaken if they believe they can stop this. Someone in that organization is afraid because they are aware of what actually transpired. Her monologue concluded with a pledge. In a few days, she would be sending her team anonymous access to unseen material. 5 million people saw the teaser alone in a single night, yet nothing came of it. Days went by. No statement, no upload. Candace fell silent. As if nothing had happened, her subsequent show aired. Comments poured in. The tape is where? Did they also reach her? There was a planned quiet. Once more, independent reporters reported that she had been threatened with legal action. Others said that federal agencies were examining the video. In any case, the excitement gave way to fatigue. By week 6, people started to move on, and even Rogan acknowledged on live, "I don't know what's real anymore." The old controversies were replaced by new ones. The story was hidden by algorithms. However, it never ended for those who had lived inside the craziness. Theories continued to abound in forums at night. Some said that Mike escaped abroad. He was living under protection, according to others. Some claimed to have spotted him at an Arizona gas station. Each rumor ran counter to the previous one. However, one theme persisted. Charlie Kirk's last everyone was still plagued by words that were recorded weeks before his demise. "I will no longer be used as a puppet by anyone." Perhaps he was referring to politics. Perhaps something more profound. However, looking back, that statement seems prophetic. Because puppets don't cut their strings in this world. The strings shortened. One reality persists while the story's lights go out. The calm man people will always be most afraid of the person in the room. Somewhere, the video is still available. The sounds, the whispers, the angles, the 6-second call. Perhaps tomorrow it may come to light. The world will remember exactly where it was when it first witnessed Mike McCoy turn away from the turmoil with his unreadable stare, even if it might never happen, because it always does. Was it guilt? Was it exercising? Was it something more sinister? Long before the cameras began to film, was there a script? Nobody can be certain. We only know that Joe Rogan was correct on one point. When your best buddy passes only 2 feet away, you don't remain so composed unless you were aware of what was going to happen. The internet is still unable to provide a solution, so we are stuck staring at the same question. What actually took place on that particular day? Was it a coincidence? A conspiracy? Or something so hidden that nobody has the courage to speak it aloud? Because odd things always happen when someone approaches the truth. The video vanishes. Accounts are locked. People stop talking. One thing Joe Rogan was correct about. Unless you are trained to do so, you don't leave chaos. Perhaps it was instinctive. Perhaps it was guilt. Or perhaps it was something quite else. Because you can tell it's no longer random when the calmest man in the room becomes the center of a storm. Let it go, the church advises. Move on, the organization urges. However, the internet never forgets. Every voice, every whisper, every frame is being recorded, edited, and archived. Since when curiosity seeks, truth conceals. Now, where is Mike McCoy? What is on that clip that is missing? And why did everyone who had promised solutions abruptly cease speaking? Perhaps the answer lies in the stillness. Stories like these never go out of style, so keep your eyes open. They come back. They contort. They come back when you don't anticipate them. And everything you believe to be true will turn upside down again when the next tape drops and the next angle leaks. Keep an eye on things. Continue to ask questions, because this is not the conclusion of the narrative. It's only getting started. This is not the conclusion of the narrative. It's only getting started.